Hi everyone, welcome back to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. It's February 16th today. It's a new month. I've been away and I'm back. Um, I'm back to my routine. So today's going to be a Q&A live stream. So there'll be some people jumping in here, hopefully live this morning. And while we wait for that, I will answer some questions to catch up on the channel. Now, what's great is I went on the channel today to catch up on just this morning to get the questions to catch up on. And while I've been away, I haven't really published a lot of videos, but everyone comments on other videos, of course. They're evergreen, what they call evergreen content. Chinese medicine never changes, right? I mean, maybe videos I make might be on a fad thing or something like that, but yeah, the ideas, which is good. We don't change our minds from the Han Dynasty, basically. So that's always a good thing for Chinese medicine. What was I going to say? But all the comments are, there's not really that many questions. They're just all mostly. There's one funny one there. I might read that out. They're mostly just really lovely questions. Lovely comments. So it's just really nice to see that people saying, I really enjoyed this video. That answers my questions. Thank you so much. I mean, I could put them all on the screen, but it will take me ages to copy and paste them all in there. So I just want to say thank you for that. It's nice that people take the time. It helps me know that the community here is growing, that people value the stuff, and that new people are coming in. And you are all welcome to ask questions. So today, if you've got a question, that would be good to ask it. I've only got a couple of things here that to put on, to just get us started. Which is great. Let me just put this on here. So there's a couple of questions about one of the videos I did on dampness recently about eggs and dampness. Where did I put this? So yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. It's been a crazy couple of weeks for me, just being so busy with the course that I was doing, which was awesome. It's just so inspiring. And it's almost like luxurious to just be able to go and do study and just immerse yourself in Chinese medicine, and not just in Chinese medicine, but as in learning from a lecture. It's different, to going like this. That's why I like going to courses. But you just get to hang out with a lot of friends, and we had a really fun house that we organised right across the road from the venue. So that was our little party house, and so I was really grateful to have lovely people to share the house with, and we were able to make that happen. And sometimes it doesn't happen. You try your best to do these things, and it doesn't. But this time it did happen, and I had a really good time. So it was awesome. And yeah, we've got one question. Well, it's not really a question here, but I'm just gonna. It's a bit of a longer one, so I'm gonna put it here. Because it's a good comment, and it's worth mentioning that. And sometimes I go off on a tangent with stuff in my videos, as you probably know if you're coming on, if you're coming here, you're here for the tangents, you're here for it. So if you've got a question, please make sure you put it in the comments, or let me know where you're streaming in from. And so yeah, this is a good one. So this little comment was on the video I made about, do eggs cause dampness? And I was talking about how it's really important to have a lot of yang types of foods in the diet, and how Chinese medicine doesn't really, shy away from meats. And this is a great sort of thing to sort of be aware of with this kind of meat eating, and which includes eggs, right? So Juvenalis 3002 says, to me, Chinese medicine is more about energy than Western medicine. That's true, right? So we think about the energetic qualities of the food, not just the nutritional qualities of the food, right? Like it's a massive difference. So are foods warm? Are they cool? Like on a spectrum of warm. Just seeing where I am in the video. So warm to cool, right? To here, because I've chopped myself off in the video. And then let's say the microphone would be neutral, right? So that's like, it's neither warm nor cool, but if you put lots of warming foods with a neutral food, the whole dish will become overall warming. Same as with something that's really cold. It will never really change its nature from being cold, but you could maybe bring it back to cooler. And ultimately you want sort of warm neutral to warm type of foods in general. You don't want too much cold foods in your diet. It's not going to be, you're not going to feel good doing that. So she said that it's more about, so that's true. Yes, definitely. Back when, I'm just reading her comment, back when they were eating meat, probably, whenever the Han Dynasty or where saying it was good because the animals hadn't suffered horribly in their lives. Of course, yes. And that's a big part. Like, I want to say I'm not 100% carnivore, but I'm mostly carnivore, and I have been following carnivore for the last 4 or 5 weeks. And that's a big part. If you're going to mostly eat meat, you want to, and most people I know who are really carnivore types of people, they do care about that. They don't just disregard that. They don't, and it is important, like how that, even some cultures have that as part of their meat eating rules, like what's halal meat, and like and Jewish traditions, those cultures have things within it about rules for how meat should be processed or killed. And I'm not an expert in those areas, but I just know that they are part of it. I'm just going to get that 5 element off my face. I'm not sure why it was just there on my face. So she says meat in part is impugned with the emotions of and the coherence and the harmony of the life that animal led. You can't treat sentient beings with lifelong cruelty and horror and expect products are made from them. And those called callous psychopaths that create these conditions to yield anything that will have any benefits. There's no reverence, respectfulness, mindfulness, in the process. The East is big on those virtues and their approach to living the way, the Tao. I eat meat from local ranchers, humanely raised using regenerative agriculture and humanely slaughtered. This meat tastes like integrity. I like that. It tastes like integrity. It sounds like a South Park, integrity farm. But I'm not laughing at you. I'm fully with you. That's totally a good idea. Sorry, I've lost my place here. This meat tastes like integrity and tastes like nothing better than commercially raised, tortured and traumatized companions, our fellow earthlings. This energy transfers to the consumers. We eat their trauma and suffering. So, look, I don't think it's a good idea to harp on, if that's all that you can afford, to it's a tricky one because it's got to do with affording what you can afford. But if you can afford that, and you should work towards that kind of thing, and certainly we should bear that in mind, right? And that's an important part of. So yes, I think this comment is a good comment. That's why I want to put it on the video today, not just sort of leave a comment on there. So thank you for contributing that to our discussion on this issue. Juvenalis 3002. So thank you for that. Got a little question from the chat here, so I will bring that on the screen. I'm going to apologise in advance for not pronouncing people's names properly. Sometimes I can't read them off YouTube that well, because they're not real names, obviously, which is probably for the best. Diparista. What should you do if you get too high on weed? Okay, I've never had this question before. Let me put this. This is a good question. Okay, I'm not laughing at your question, but a funny song come in my head then. Let me grab this question here. In there. If people have a question, please feel free to put it in there in the comments. No question who's doing will go unturned. So what I was like thinking, I was gonna go to work, but then I got high. Well, hopefully you're not gonna go to work high. What should you do if you get too high on weed? Is it bad in TCM? Yes. So one thing, it is really bad. It's not a great thing. So any substance that you take that alters your perception of pain, okay, because that's what marijuana can do. or give you elation, right? Which is, or a high, like what we would say is a high feeling. So this includes alcohol too. It's just with alcohol, it's in a different context. It's quantity based versus just a dose based. They all affect your Shen, okay? And they affect this axis called heart and kidney communication. So if we have a look here, I've got my 5 element thing ready to go right here. So if you have a look here, you've got fire and water. That's heart and kidney. So this little diagram here is showing it going around in a circle. That's the generating cycle. But each element is controlled by another element. So water controls fire. Fire controls metal, and vice versa, right? And water and fire have this like relationship, which is the fire is the where's my hand? Can I put it on that? Like I'm a puppet thing there. So fire and so weird doing this. Water. Water is the kidney. So the heart and kidney. And that's having a strong heart and kidney communication. That relationship allows you to have proper sleep. It allows you to have proper rest. And when that starts to go out of balance, you can actually have like psychosis as the worst case scenario type of thing. Like a person can go really mentally ill. And what marijuana can do, or weed can do, is it can heat up the fire element too much. Okay, so as in it's wasting your body's yang or your body's jing. If you want to follow TCM, they would say it's consuming essence. It's consuming resource either way, whether you want to think of it as jing and essence or you want to think of it as yang. It's the same idea. It's robbing your body of its resource in order to elicit that response for you to feel that way. Like there are I don't know whether you can stop, like, I've never smoked weed, just by the way, so I've smoked it once in my life. Like I was at a party in high school and I felt terrible. I just felt really, I don't even know if I smoked it properly. It was like one of those bongs in the back of the, in the back of the party room in the laundry. And, everyone was having some and I just went and had some and I was like, I'm never doing this again. I just did not feel great. And anyway, that was it. I was a one-hit wonder. So probably for the best. But I'm not averse to drinking alcohol or anything like that. Like I'm not like, oh, you're just such a prude, you can't do anything fun. But any of those substances can have that effect on your Shen, right? And I fully understand that some people are using it to treat conditions now, right? Like there's it can be good effects within the bad effects as well. But on the whole, if you're doing something like recreationally, what I've seen in patients is it tends to disrupt that heart and kidney communication, and it can give them like a heating up of the pericardium and the fire element. So your fire element is your heart itself, and then around that is the pericardium. That's the sac around the heart. And I'll get to the next question in a minute because I can see there's something about the lungs there, and we can talk about that. Yeah, and if other people have a question, please feel free to put that in there in the comments. So that overheatingness can give you a tendency towards anxiety and all this sort of stuff, right? So yes, the second answer to the first question, part of the question is it's bad. Now, if you're, what I was trying to say is that, like, so I've never done it myself to test this on myself, right? But I have heard cases where people have sort of snapped out of like ruined their high basically by certain acupuncture points, right? Which would basically bring that consciousness kind of snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity, like something like that. Okay. Now, it's also prohibited in Chinese medicine to do acupuncture on someone for two reasons. One is if you're high, if you're because you can't give informed consent, for one. Like if a patient came to me and they were over and I knew that they were high on drugs of any sort, they're not in a state to give informed consent that they can do that treatment. Okay, that's one reason. But the other reason is it's actually can probably disturb their resources too much doing acupuncture in that state. Now, if someone was, like in the old days, they were in a psychotic state from some kind of drug, there are points that can be used to kind of stop that psychotic state. Okay, then we have references to the use of those points. Now, whether people got into that psychosis, that psychotic state from a drug thing or not, in the old days, we don't know, because they just said, if a person's doing this kind of behavior, they've got phlegm misting the mind, or they've got this thing going on, you can use these points. So most of the points, they have to be pressed very firmly, and you'd use the nail of your hand, right? So one of the points could be here on the philtrum, like between your nose and here, and you would press it really hard. Another point that could be used is right on the sole of your foot. This is not the foot, but obviously like the kidney 1 kind of point. You would have to use something like this. This is my Apple Pencil, aka acupressure device. Okay, you'd have to press it in pretty hard. And there's other points. So they use these points called Jingwell points, which are right on the ends of the fingers, but they're right at the corner of the nail, and they kind of hurt. And it's that feeling of like, that hurting feeling, which is going to activate like to sort of decrease the heat. Now, the thing is, acupuncture and acupressure, that system can only work with what's already in your body. It's not putting a substance in you. So let's say you're overdosing on something, that's not what we're talking about. And they give you something like Narcan. It goes into your body and it just blocks those opioid receptors, and you suddenly can't, the drug can't act for that time that the Narcan's in your system. But then once that wears off, you can still be overdosing, right? So that's kind of the use of that. Now, I don't know whether with acupuncture it would still be quite dangerous if someone was overdosing on something and you were able to bring them back to a state of like, awareness. But then they still have the drug in their system. It's not going to kick the drug out of your system. So if you're saying I got too high and I need to pass a drug test or something like that, there's nothing you can do about that in Chinese medicine. Not saying that that's what you're asking for, but that's a cool question. That's an interesting question. So thank you for that. All right, good. I'll get rid of that one. And we'll start with another one. This is great. We've got quite a few questions on here, which is awesome. Cool. We got a couple of good ones here. I'm just going to go in order, even though I probably like the last question better. Either way, I don't know. I haven't really read this one properly. Let me just add this in. So I hope everyone's doing well today. Maybe you can let us know where you're tuning in from. Are you in the US? Are you in the UK? Australia? So let's see if we can answer this. So reaching higher, 247. No pun intended from the previous question. Oscar. I don't think that's what you mean. Reaching higher, probably just entrepreneurially. What can be used to heal the lungs after someone is recovering from pneumonia? Okay. Also, please advise on a good liver detox. Okay. So these two things are completely separate. You don't need to do a liver detox to heal from pneumonia. I'm just going to make a statement that I'm not claiming that we can treat pneumonia. So this is let's assume. Oh, California. That's cool. California love. I'm in a singing mood this morning. It's just every question and comment seems like a little song to me. What can you be used to heal from? So let's assume you've just got any kind of chronic lung condition. Doesn't have to be pneumonia. And you're trying to strengthen your lungs. So if we look over here at this little at this 5-element chart that I put, the lungs belong to metal. Okay, here's the metal right here. And the metal element is your lung and your large intestine. So the earth generates the metal. Okay, so that's the first way you would want to start to work on. So you can, if we say we want to strengthen the lungs, we essentially want to strengthen metal. Okay, and so we could either do that directly, and I'll give you some things you could do. But often with acupuncture, acupressure, with herbs or like the strategy with herbs is and diet is often through this way. So we either do the mother of that element, the earth, or make sure fire is able to control metal properly and that it's not over controlling metal. So sometimes with pneumonia, actually what happens is because if any element itself gets weak, it's a target. It's a target for the other elements because they're just doing their thing naturally, and the fire can overbear onto the metal and just sort of scorch it and make it too hot. And that's what happens with the lungs, because your lung tissue is, easy to get burned in a way, right? It's, if you've ever looked at a lungs, it's like really fragile. It's really sort of, thin kind of tissue. So it dries out real easily, and that's what causes that pain in your chest where you've got this horrible pain and you just doing a sympathetic cough then. That sort of dryness, it can be really painful with, another condition people can get is called pleurisy, which is like where the pleura, the stuff around the lungs, which is supposed to keep them, somewhat moist, gets so dry and it's frictiony and it's so painful for people. So the first thing that's the easiest way to do this is to fix up your diet and to know that when you strengthen earth, that generates metal. So metal can't be generated if the earth is weak, right? So if you've got any kind of spleen qi deficiency or dampness, from a TCM perspective, they've given you that diagnosis, then you want to work on that stuff. So essentially, you might be already doing this and it might sound redundant. It might sound like, oh, you say this all the time. Get onto a clear, bland kind of diet or avoid packet foods. Like I've heard RFK say this a lot now. He's like, just eat real food, right? If it comes from a packet, probably just don't eat it. Like, I've been saying that for a long time, and I'm sure lots of people on this channel already know that stuff because you're aware, and you wouldn't be coming to a stream like this if you're sitting there eating a bag of Twinkies. But it's easy. Sometimes, we all go through stages I've been doing carnivore for a while now, and the other night I was like, oh man, I just feel like a Twinkie. Well, I didn't have any Twinkies. I don't even know what a Twinkie is, to be honest. Like a cake. I felt like a bit of cake. And, you're just like, that stuff really overwhelms the spleen, the earth. It overwhelms it. And then it can't do its job properly, and it can't generate metal. So having mostly warm, cooked and moist foods, looking after that earth, having regular meals. Like if for some people, they just don't eat enough. And if you're on the skinnier side, then you can easily get lung issues, right? So that's part of it. So you want to do everything you can to strengthen that earth. So if you're new to the channel and you're not sure how to do that, there's a video I've got called Why Mostly Cooked Foods. Then there's also a couple of ones that say, how to help your spleen qi in 2021 or whatever. Don't worry about the year. That's all still the same stuff. So strengthening that earth element, okay? And the next one is to sort of make sure that fire isn't overpowering the metal. And that's where things like drug use, or not that you are using drugs, but, alcohol, these things that heat up the mental aspect of your life, which is the shen, your pericardium, your heart. Those things can have an overbearing effect on the metal, making it, scorching it, so you're avoiding that sort of stuff. And that's essentially it's diet related too, right? So especially if you're having alcohol, it's probably, a little bit of alcohol can help things like moving qi, but if it's a lot, if it's regularly and it's, a lot, that can be not great, or you're getting euphoria type of thing from it, right? That's going to disturb that shed. Making sure your sleep is good, is essentially the background way that your body's going to repair. So it's some of this stuff in Chinese medicine just sounds like simple. Oh yeah, I was looking for the special thing, Marie. Like, where's the special one herb that I could use that's going to fix my lungs? It's like with this kind of stuff, you can go and see a practitioner and get some herbs, and that can help to make, especially if you see a classical Chinese herbalist, that's what I do. We more think about restoring that homeostasis. So what we would think about is, okay, you might actually need some herbs to strengthen that metal, but also take the fire off of the metal so it's stopping to attack it all the time. Now, points-wise, what you can do on your hand, okay, this is your lung channel here. So this one, lung 10, is a good one. And it's right in the middle, and it usually feels sore. So you can press it firmly especially if you've got a cough and there's a bit of heat or there's a bit of phlegm still there. And then this one here is lung 9. So that is like another point you can use. So that's just directly strengthening the lungs. The other points that can use is actually stomach 36, which is the earth of the earth point. So the mother of the metal point. And that point you could use with Moxa. You can buy Moxa sticks and do that yourself if you get trained properly from a practitioner to how to use the Moxa. That's the best way. That's what I would advise. If you know already how to use Moxa, be very careful with Moxa. If you never used it before, it's easy to burn yourself. I'm not recommending people do self-Moxa if you don't know what you're doing. All right, good. So we've got quite a few questions here. That's just great. Ultraviolet tuning in from California. Ultra. I think that is ultraviolet. I'm just going to put this question in here about wood element. All right, here we go. So anything I can do, this is the question, to increase wood element, especially liver chi, warming it basically, right? There's a lot you can do. So if we look at this little chart here to sort of give us an idea of what the elements, what they do, where they go. Oh, hang on, I'm going to adjust myself here on the screen. Put that over there. You can see that wood is generated by water, okay? And what that means is that it's your kidney, it's the reserve of your body that actually generates the wood. Wood is also the start, considered the start of the cycle because it relates to spring, okay? So if you're, I think you said you're in California, so that means it will be your spring now, right? So this is a perfect time for you. Ta-da! So great for you. We're coming out of summer now and it's going to become, well, we're still in summer. It's pretty hot here. So I would assume you're still in winter because seasons sort of, they change, so nothing to do with climate change. Anything like that. It's just the seasons every year change, and there is a prediction system in Chinese medicine that predicts, okay, this year we're going to have a longer winter, this year we're going to have a shorter summer, this year it's going to be more of a drier season. That's been around in Chinese medicine for a long, long time. This year it's definitely a colder, I think it's a longer, winter might have started later and go later, and same with summer. Well, definitely that's happening for where we are. Anyway, so once that weather starts to warm up, okay, so what's happening is you're coming out, and this is exactly in these cycles. So water is the winter time. You naturally will want to be outside a bit more, especially if I don't think California snows or anything like that, right? It's not that freezing, but it's probably a lot colder than where I live in Perth. So the Neijing says, as in springtime, you should let your hair out and go outside and walk around. Now, what that means is in winter, they would have been all bundled up because they didn't have central heating in the house. You had a fireplace probably if you were lucky, and you would have bundled up and you wouldn't have washed yourself that much because every time you went and had a shower or a bath or whatever, they didn't have showers in the Han Dynasty, you would have been exposed to the environment. You would have been, more easily cold and, all that sort of stuff. So now's the time to open your bundlings and get outside and be outside, and that actually being outside stimulates the wood element. So the growth, right, is the fire coming, right? But when in springtime, it's the buds of things, right? Things start to, you can smell it. Spring is in the air, right? You can smell this sort of maybe things that have been really dormant, trees and things like that, start to sprout new growth on them. So there's heaps of things you can do with the wood, right? So it sounds like if you want to warm it, it sounds like it's more deficiency rather than a stuckness, a stagnant of chi. So the wood element has two parts, right? The chi of the wood, which is the gallbladder, and the blood of the wood, or the yin of the wood, which is the liver. And like both of them have to have each other as part of it. So blood isn't just liquid with no warmth in it. It needs that. It carries that warmth, which is the yang, right? So it carries some. There's yang within the yin, and same as with the chi. The chi isn't just sort of a big old fan with no liquid. There is going to be some kind of liquid there, because it has to be, right? You can't just have absolute yin and absolute yang. Anyway, I've gone off on a tangent here. Not really answering the question. So to nourish blood, right, which is increasing the wood, and maybe you can you don't have to put like your private details in there, but is it more for like creativity and emotional stuff and mental stimulation, or is it because of menstrual issues, or is it because of like a specific is it more psychological, like things like where because the wood element relates to creativity, like why you wanted to sort of do this. That might give me a bit of an idea about how to answer this question better for you. Well, what was I saying? I'm just thinking about my train of thought. Yeah, so blood, to warm the blood, essentially is like meat will do that. You don't need anything else, rather than like red meat will definitely do that. And backing off of carbs and heavier foods will probably help with that. You still need fats in the diet, but that can help. You can have all kinds of red foods, right, as in berries, like blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, mulberries, that kind of stuff. They are all nourishing to blood, and that's kind of got that signature to help that. What else? The other food you could use, so there's a few herbs type of food. So one is ginger. You can use that because that was going to help to nourish this. So I'm just trying to think about how to say this without making it too complicated. Like your body can't absorb that nutrients if your earth element isn't working properly. It just won't be able to do it. Put this aircon on, it's freezing, and then I turn it off and it's hot. So weird. So better just leave it on. It gets stuffy in here because there's no windows in this room. What was I going to say? So earth. So you can all the strategies we talked about before for that other person about nourishing the earth to help the metal. You can do all that sort of stuff as well, right? That's not going to go astray. Now, if you just want to stimulate the wood element for creativity, right? As in, okay, what's the wood relate to? Purpose, seeing your life, seeing your future, seeing something beyond yourself, having that vision for your life. And this is where the springtime is perfect for this, because it's about doing new things. So I know this for myself, but I also sort of tell this to my patients, right? So let's say you've got someone that's like, oh, I really want to do this. They've been procrastinating or like keeping that idea on the spinner for a while. When's the best time to do that? Right, not in the middle of winter. You need to wait until, like, where are we in the cycle of things? We need to wait until wood, like, you're going to have the momentum of life then. And actually, like, for the Chinese, that's Chinese New Year, right? For us in Australia, we're opposite everything. It just sort of sucks. It's Chinese New Year right now, and that's what they call the spring festival, because it's the new year when it's the springtime. Like, that's why it's Chinese New Year on the springtime. So it kind of makes sense, right? So yeah, I'm just reading the follow-up thing here. So my day master, I'm not sure what that means, is yin fire, but it's weak. Then following my earth element, even weaker, but my water element is strong, but kidney is weak. Okay, so I'm not really sure how you got that information. Like, did a practitioner, are you talking about like personality or constitutional type, like in the Worsley 5-element type of system, you mean? Like that's where you've ranked it? Like that's a different thing, like constitutional types? Or you mean like, I'm just not sure, maybe it's a typo, day master is yin fire, or it's a different system that I don't know about. Like there's a lot of systems of Chinese medicine. I don't know everything. So yeah, look, the idea in the 5-element theory is not the TCM 5-element theory, but the Worsley system and the constitutional types and all what I call the personality types, is that you can be all these types, right? As in they all have abilities, they all have qualities, and they all are in you, but just not all of them are dominant. Not all of them are going to come easy to you in there. So yeah. Like, so technically, if you want to strengthen the wood element, or you're thinking that's weaker, so just going back to that follow-up question, saying, but my water element's strong, but my kidneys are weak, it's kind of impossible, because the water element is the kidneys. So you can't have that, both of those statements can't be true at the same time. So the kidneys and the water element are interchangeable, right? You could be a water type, a constitutional water type, and have that propensity to that kidney weakness because that water type is out of balance. But it doesn't mean that the water element is strong. Does that make sense? So they're kind of confusing systems for people that don't practice that 5 elements personality kind of system, and that's not what I practice in my practice. I just know about it, and I find it's a really good system to understand yourself psychologically, right? To understand that you have all these different that these are all characteristics of people, and some people are wired more differently in different ways, and to sort of understand how to strengthen your strengths, strengthen your weaknesses, that kind of stuff. It's really useful for that. Yeah, but there is such a thing like where you'll have a type that's if you did the test and you said, okay, this is my number one, I resonate more with the water type, well, that in itself can get out of balance. So you can have a deficient or an excess. And because that's your type, you can then have urinary issues or kidney in Chinese medicine, kidney issues, which could be urinary problems. It could be even sexual things for men. It can be, impotence type of sexual stuff, dysfunction. It could be, prostate issues, that kind of thing. Like be overflowing with water, people that get a lot of edema or things like that, or, tending to get UTIs all the time, urinary tract infections. Anyway, so that hopefully that helps you somewhat. I'm not sure if I have helped you in any way at all there, but I hope it's helped a little bit. If you have a follow-up, you can always put that in the comments, okay? If other people have a question, please put your question in there. I can see more people are coming in the stream, which is good. Welcome. It's good to see people interested in learning about Chinese medicine. I always like that. Thank you, Reaching Higher. Thank you for your response. That's good. I'm glad you like that. Glad that was helpful. Indigo Fire, I've got a question here. I'm going to put that on the screen. I recently harvested and dried hawthorn berries. Oh, that's so cool. You're growing your own Chinese herbs. It's actually an interesting, what are we going to make this? Number 6. When I was in China, the first time I saw them do hawthorn berries like candy apples. So, they would just be all on a little stick, and with like in Australia we call it a toffee apple. They've got sort of some kind of like the hot sugary candy, and it's dried on there, and people going around eating that on a stick. So you can eat them fresh, but they're just really hard to get fresh unless you obviously are growing them yourself. You can't buy them fresh in Australia because they're never sold here. They're never grown here. We can only import them, I guess. I think. So you've recently harvested and dried hawthorn berries and been adding them to tea. I do not have any heart issues, but I have stagnant energy and I need to build blood, etc. How many should I be using? Well, that's a good question. How long is a piece of string? I don't know. So this is kind of how you think about things with like if you're doing a Chinese herbal formula, the dose is actually quite high of the herbs, but there's a mixture of herbs in things, right? So for instance, like if I'll use this as an example, okay? So this is a lily. These are lily bulbs here, right? And this is a food and it's a herb. I don't have any hawthorn berries because in my system of herbs we don't use hawthorn berries in herbal formulas, right? So, oh, it smells so good. That's a handful of this herb, right? Right there. That's a handful of it. Now, that would be probably, if we were dosing this in a herb sense, that would probably be about 9 grams of this, what's in my hand, maybe, something like that. Maybe a little bit more than that. And in a herbal sense, this could be, sometimes between 9 grams and up to even 60 grams wouldn't be uncommon because it's such a, just how the herb is, if you're a herbalist giving it. And you're taking that every day and you're boiling the herb, like you're soaking it, you're boiling it, so you're really extracting a lot of stuff out of it. Now, when you make something as a tea, you're usually having what someone would dose, what a practitioner would dose you in terms of just that one herb, a day's worth of herb, you're having that over a week. And you're just having a very, small infusion of it. Now, is it still effective? Yeah, it can be. Like I've seen effects I've even done it on myself, right? Like I've had teas at like a sort of, clearing heat for hay fever and stuff like that. And it can help, right? With this kind of thing that you're saying, it's like chipping away at the blood stagnation, let's say, or particularly for chi stagnation. This kind of thing is like, you would just include it in your diet. So what would be great when you're making a tea out of it is, like, I don't know if you have these, but I have little teapots what have a little burner underneath, like a little warmer, and you put a tea light candle under there, and then after half a day of having that sit there, it's literally extracting a lot because it's warming it, slowly warming it, right? And I've done an experiment with that little candle. Actually, it will bring the water from cold to hot, not boiling it. It'll never boil it, but it'll bring it to warm like a tea, like hot enough to drink like a tea over 4 hours. It will heat up water, and that will extract that more of the stuff out of the food. Now, hawthorn berry is one of these herbs that you can actually track the extraction of it by looking at it. It will be really nice and red and juicy, and the flavor will be a lot, and then you put the next pour of the water over the top and the flavor will kind of go out, and it will actually go a bit more sour, so you have a sweet and a sour kind of flavor in hawthorn berry, because I use it in a lot of my teas, right? Like the herbal teas that I make in my business for retail sale. So look, I would just use like a handful of it, and like, I don't know how many grams that would be. Maybe a teaspoon is about 3 grams. And you're just sort of having it every day, or every couple of days you have it. It's not really a herb that's used for heart issues, by the way. It's just more for, when we say heart, it nourishes the blood in terms of the mental aspect of the heart, not the physical heart of Western medicine. Hawthorn berry does 2 things in Chinese medicine. One is it's moving food stagnation. So it's a great herb to have as a tea after you've eaten a lot of food, right? Or you just feel bloated or stuck after eating, and you're in the afternoon and you're like, oh, I feel like a bit bloated and stuck. Like it's a great tea to have then, because you don't want to necessarily like get on the train of like coffee in the afternoon, especially if that revs you up and you can't sleep in the evening. So that's one of the ways you could use it. You can actually mix hawthorn berry with other things. So another thing you could try is drying like chen pea, which is any sort of mandarin or tangerine peel, and you just get your own mandarins that you've eaten, and then you just let the peel dry. If you don't, if you live in a moist environment, not a dry environment, and it's not summer, so basically you just dry it in the air fryer or dry it in a dehydrator. Otherwise, it's going to go. I mean, if you're drying your own hawthorn berry, you obviously know how to dry foods. You're not an idiot. So you could mix those two together, right? So you've got the chen pea, or you can buy a dry, chen pea, which the more darker it is and the more nicer tasting it is. It's aged. It's been dried and aged for a while. Like it's an older one, and that's really moving qi, like really breaking qi stuckness, right? And those two herbs work good together, and you'll kind of get that citrusy, soury, slightly sweet flavor. If you've got a bit of mental restlessness and you don't have a lot of dampness, you could put the dardao, the red dates, in there with it, and that'd be a little good little kind of combo there together. If you've got a lot of dampness, or you're trying to be low carbs or lose weight, don't put the dardao, because if you're having that every day, it's quite sweet and sugary. It's not sugar, but it'll get you out of ketosis if you're trying to do something like that. But the sweet flavor kind of relaxes the mind, okay, and that's why we like sweet flavors. So that's really good to hear that you're doing your own growing and harvesting of things. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just reading your question there about the follow-up one about the hawthorn berry variations. I really don't know. Sorry. I'm not an expert on the botany of Chinese medicines. But yeah, you might need to look up the species of things. I mean, if you're using them as a food, like it seems like it would have a similar effect. I mean, the other option is you get the ones that you've grown and you've dried, and then you do a little experiment where you make a tea out of those, and then you make a tea out of the ones you buy from the shops, and you sort of taste the difference. See if if yours are really, really sour and they don't have any sweet, versus the other ones have a sweet flavor and then a bit of a sour flavor. That will give you an indication of that they might be different. Yours are obviously going to just taste better because you haven't probably used pesticides on them or anything, crazy. They've be fresher, right? So the qi will be greater in something when you've gotten it. Usually, when you've gotten it fresher, then who knows how long that stuff's been on the shelf in the Chinese grocery market before it even got in the bag that got there and got shipped over, that kind of stuff. Yeah, but that's a good question. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to the hawthorn variations. Yeah. Oh, hi Taurus. That's good. So you're here. Welcome. All right. Have we got any other questions? Do people have a question they'd like to ask? I'm just going to see if I've missed any here. I actually can't go for that long today anyway. I have to go in 15 minutes probably. A lot of patience today. But I thought I would still do the stream because I've committed to it. and if I don't do it now, then the week goes past and all my gear is in my room. And it's hard to get back in the routine of things. Like after having 2 whole weeks of just being in the routine, a colleague that I was sharing the house with, he's so lovely. When we were at this thing, and he's like, "Oh, how are we going to get back into normal life? Like we're just in the seminar routine. Like every day is a seminar. It's lovely to just listen, and there's just something different about that. Doing it for so long. Like 2 years ago, I did the same thing. Went to Byron Bay, and we had a 10-day Shanghanlun retreat that my teacher Arno does, and that was hard in the end to keep your concentration, right? So there was no break. There was just 10 days straight, and Byron Bay is a bit harder to get to, so we had to travel. I'm from Perth, so I had to go from one end. It's like going from wood to earth on this little chart that's over here, wherever that chart is, on one end of Australia to the other end. And then we had to travel down by bus to the Byron Bay. Like it was just a bit of a journey to get there. So it's a day each way, getting there. So it was 10. So it ended up being 12 days. And this trip was 11 days away, but we had 2 days break. So, and there was different things going on, which was good. So, I've got a little question here. I'll just put that in there instead of ranting on about my trip. Anyway, so what's good is you don't get that much opportunity to just do something different for that amount, that especially when you run your own business, right? Like there's always stuff that you need to kind of deal with. So I tried to make sure I didn't deal with everything, because stuff happens that you're not that you weren't expecting, and that was stressful in itself. But anyway, we soldier on. But yeah, it was nice to just think about Chinese medicine really and learn for 10 days rather than doing other things. So we had like a day of clinic training, and then which is like where we have like if patients come in, our teacher sees the patient, feels the pulse, then we all line up and feel that patient's pulse, and you sort of learn what formulas are used and stuff like that. So it's like just cementing that pulse diagnosis in your mind, because it's the system I do is really heavy, relies on that pulse diagnosis. So we did that for 1 day, and then there was 5 days of an advanced seminar, and then there was a little 2-day break, which was good, and then we had another 2 days. Some people didn't stay for the other seminar, but I was like, well, I'm here anyway. I might as well do it again, because do it again, you learn a different thing. And then I did that, and then we had another clinic day, and then it was coming home time. All right, so Ultraviolet says, also heard if you eat a certain way or consume certain foods or herbs in seasons, you can prevent sickness in another. Do you know of any tips on how to do that? Yeah, so that's a Neijing principle, right? Neijing means the Yellow Emperor's classic of internal medicine. It talks about doing what's right in each season to suit the following season, right? And it talks about if you don't do what's right in this season, you won't suit the following season. Like these people that, like, have you ever met a person that goes around, oh, I hate winter, oh, I hate summer, oh, I can't wait for summer to be over, I hate it. That's often because your body's in some way not aligned to that season, right? And this doesn't just happen because of one season you did previously wrong. I mean, it possibly can, but it's usually a lifestyle sort of a thing. So for instance, the fatter you are, the more uncomfortable you are in summer, because you've got all this extra padding and your body can't shed that heat, and you don't feel comfortable in summer. Whereas you might feel more comfortable in winter, right? And you also have body types of people. Some people are more puffy, some people are more skinny and dry. And those people will tend to thrive in the opposite seasons, right? But yeah, so what and they call this seasonal attunement. Okay, now Pitchford in his text, which is the Healing with Whole Foods text, does have a bit about that. In the course that I run, this is what we talk about, right? So I can't really give you like a 3-hour lecture right now, because I don't have 3 hours thing of time. But that's like to really sort of go, oh, this is what I do in each season, to sort of say I'm going to suit the season. It's not just, oh, you nibble on a bit of cinnamon and then you'll be right to go for summer. Like if you do that in that'll attune you to wood, and then sometimes some of it is a little bit of that, but it's to do with your whole lifestyle, right? Like your sleep should be different in winter and summer, and then the transitional seasons like spring and autumn or fall are transitional seasons. So your sleep should be different. Your what you eat is kind of different. Just in a general sense, you can have more heavier foods in winter and more lighter foods in summer. Now that you might not know what that is, like say for instance more soups and stews and stuff like that. And what it's saying is if you do what's right in each season, then you will suit this next season, and then you won't get sick in that next season. Now, I can't guarantee you're not going to get sick, but you're more in line with the environment, right? So one principle just to remember is that everyone is going to be interfacing with the environment. Everyone does. It's impossible not to. Otherwise, you're going to be a bubble boy living in a suit, and the wind will never touch you. The cold will never touch you, right? But that's an impossible thing, right? We are all interfacing with the environment at all times, and it's the environment that causes us to get sick. So the reason why we get abnormally sick, which means you get a cold or a flu that doesn't go away, right? So it's actually unhealthy to never get sick, never get a cold or a flu, never get a fever. That's not right. That's not normal. And often those people have some other condition going on, an autoimmune kind of condition or something like that. So what we're talking about is they talk about alignment in Chinese medicine. So if you're aligned in the right way, then when the environment comes against you, you have the right defensive mechanism for that thing, right? So doing what's right in each season aligns you. So what's right in winter is actually not, doing what's right in winter isn't going to align you properly to what's right in summer. And another part of that is actually exercise. So just to go back to those two things, like rather than to say, come and do the course and you'll learn about it, I'll try to tell you roughly what it is. So in winter, you need more sleep. In summer, you need less sleep, right? And you can transition, and it talks about going to bed early or going to bed later, and just the transition between. I think I've got a video on that on the channel somewhere. And in summer, you can exercise more, and in winter, you shouldn't exercise much at all. And this is a big part of not getting sick. So it's not so much about eating particular foods, but those two things alone will help you attune your body to the seasons. So in the heat, in the dead of winter, like the winter solstice, the coldest part, you should not be exercising to the point at all, which is basically, one of my teachers used to just say, don't sweat for more than 10 minutes. Like, you shouldn't really try to crack on a sweat in winter, because your body is, the pores are closed for a reason, to keep everything in. And as soon as you sweat, the outside environment is so cold that it's going to come in. The sweating opens the pores. Now in summer, it's normal to sweat, and if you don't do that, then you're not going. One is you won't lose, the weight that you probably put on in winter. Not you're supposed to put on heaps of weight, but you won't actually nourish the muscles properly, because the sweating, helps you to do that. And it's normal to sweat because the yang of your body's on the surface in summer and it's on the inside in winter. And you're trying to go along with what nature's naturally doing. So there's a bit of that, right? And that's kind of probably the advice for that. Paul Pitchford, in his Healing with Whole Foods book, he talks about foods for seasonal attunement. So he talks about using sour and for the wood, and a little bit of sweet, like for earth. And these are not so much the flavors that I would use so much. They're more, those flavors are more representative flavors, not so much. It's that's another topic, another conundrum. So there's different flavors for different elements that do different things. But definitely if you follow the sleep and the exercise differences, you can really suit your body to the seasons well, right? So winter is almost like a time of storage. You need to let your body rest. You don't want to be doing, like, we go back to what I was talking about with this person that was asking, maybe it was even ultraviolet, like about the wood element, right? You want to do creative things, you want to do new things. Well, you're forcing that to happen in winter, really. So if you're going with the seasons, you're sort of saying, okay, winter's my downtime. If I had a downtime, a few months of downtime, I give myself a bit of a break, give myself a little bit I don't have to push too hard. But when do you push the hardest? In summer, right? And you push towards summer in springtime, which is what you guys are coming into in the UK, the US, everywhere else in the world. Whereas for me, we're in the push now, like you're in the midst of it. But as soon as that weather starts to change and gets cooler, it's like, it doesn't mean you just stop, but it's a transition towards that. So if I'm thinking about doing like a heavy exercise routine, like I do this thing called 75 Hard. I've done it for once a year, every year for the last few years. Like, not saying I have to do it once a year, but I will usually choose to I would not do it in the winter. Let's just say that. I'm not going to be like, oh, I have to go out and face the, because you have to do like 2 workouts a day. One of them has to be outside. Like, I'm not going to do that in wintertime. That's just stupid. That's just mad. I'm not David Goggins, right, running in the snow. Yeah. All right. So that's that one. All right. So hopefully that answers that question. In the courses that I have on self learning, I don't have it as a standalone course, but it's part of the first one that I have called Foundational Concepts of Chinese Medicine. And then it's also part of the Chinese dietetics class that I do, which is, both of those are 12-week classes. So if you're interested in learning those things and you're not sure which one to enroll in or where that would be, just send me an email, chinesemedicinepodcast@gmail.com, and we can kind of have a chat on the email, or you can even book a call with me and we can have a chat on the phone about what course would be best for you if you want to do something like that. Cool. All right. How much does it cost? What is that in relation to the ICAM thing I was doing, right? The studying the classical Chinese medicine. Is that what you were talking about? Got the last bit of coffee in the bottom of the thing. It's just all the foamy, frothy milk. Now, yeah. How much is it? The ICAM isn't cheap, but it's worth it. So you just have to sell a kidney. Not really. But yeah, it's no more expensive than any other CPD type of thing. It's not like crazy exorbitant, but depends on what you're studying. The retreat thing, yeah. So the Shanghan Lun, it's about $5,000 Australian, I think it was. The 10 days was more than that. The one I just did for 5 days, the training was about $5,000. Yeah, the whole 2 weeks was 10,000 Australian that I spent by the time I'd paid for the accommodation and the airfare and the and I basically got the airfares on my frequent flyer points, so I didn't pay much for them. But the course, yeah, it's about $800 a day in terms of in Australian dollars, around roughly about that much. For these things, it just costs what it costs. But yeah, it's like once you've started it, you get addicted and you can't stop learning, and you're like, there's no one else that teaches this kind of stuff, and I wouldn't keep doing it if I wasn't getting results with patients and it wasn't helping me, and I just wanted to. I just love doing it, and then I guess you just find a way to make that happen. Do I have diet plans on the course, or can you aid in that on there? So I don't teach people like a diet plan, like you've got to eat this for breakfast, lunch and dinner. The diet course is really designed to teach you how to think about Chinese medicine, like what is a fruit? What is a fruit? What are the properties of all the different fruits? And then there are recipes in there. They're like medicinal recipes. Say, for instance, like we were talking about hawthorn berries earlier, like hawthorn berry wine. There's a recipe on that for blood stagnation. And we'll talk about how to make medicinal wines. What are the different ways of doing that? And then you can devise your own sort of diet stuff based on the knowledge that's there. It's not like teaching you, if you've got dampness, you've got to follow these recipes and eat these foods and do this exact thing. It's more like saying, okay, let's think about grains. Like there's a whole week on grains. And like this kind of knowledge is more empowering than someone selling you a course saying, I'm going to give you 50 recipes and if you cook these, all your problems will go away. Whatever. Like that doesn't happen. That's not going to happen. Not that people are saying that. But so you've got sort of like one of the weeks is saying, okay, let's talk about the natures of the food. So you firstly understand what's warm, what does it mean for something to be warm, what does it mean for something to be cool or cold or neutral, and not just a whole week on that, but it's part of that lesson, right? And then when we go to, say, for instance, grains, we'd go through all the different grains, so oats, rice, quinoa, buckwheat, millet, these different things. So let's say you already have a recipe that you use, or you already know how to make bread, or you already know how to make muffins, and you love eating muffins. So you could then devise a better way of having them. Okay, I'm going to use buckwheat flour because buckwheat's better for me based on these properties of buckwheat than just plain, wheat flour. And then you might make those muffins and go, oh, they don't taste that great. Maybe I'd use half buckwheat, half this other flour. You'll be able to experiment with the cooking kind of like that, right? And you might go, okay, I know that I want to put some blood moving stuff in my foods. So what herbs can I use? Like there's a lot of herb combinations with cooking. Go down to the Chinese food shop and you'll be able to sort of see some packets of soups and stuff like that, and then cook soup, cook herbs with foods. There's a little bit of that stuff in the course. I've done these all live already. So I did them last year, and they the first two, and we're halfway through the final unit. So I don't let people do that final unit, which is the self-treatment unit, until you've done either one or two of the first ones. Okay, but the first ones, the foundational concepts of Chinese medicine and the Chinese dietetics, they can just be taken as standalone things, and you'll be able to learn from them. They're based around people for people that don't know anything about Chinese medicine. But the Chinese dietetics, after the second week, or maybe after week 3 of there's 12 weeks, so after week 2, so from week 3 onwards, that's at the same level as what I would have taught at a university course. Was I did used to teach a university course on Chinese dietetics for many, many years. So it's exactly what Chinese herbalists or acupuncturists would learn the same level of that sort of teaching. It's not dumbed down or anything like that, but the first 2 weeks is designed so that if you don't know the concepts of Chinese medicine at all, you might have watched a few of my videos on YouTube and you might have gone, oh, I understand a bit about wood, fire, earth, but I don't really get it. You'll still be able to get into it. Now, if you really want to know what Chinese medicine is about, the foundational theory of it, then you do that foundational concepts and you'll know a lot. And even if you're studying Chinese medicine, it's another way of learning these things that are still the concepts you would learn in your TCM school. I'm just good at explaining some things in a way. And the reason why I'm good at explaining this stuff is because I never understood it myself when I was in Chinese medicine school. It used to just sound like woo woo boo 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 boo, and I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? It sounds like nonsense. But I was intrigued by that nonsense. I was like, there's something to this, but not all the teachers, but I had some teachers who were so Chinese, I could barely understand their accent and their English. And I just couldn't ascertain the information out of them, and they just would never give you the information properly. They didn't know how to explain it properly. And they would have these weird little analogies that they would use that some of them made sense, some of them didn't. And I just used to have to sit there and think about it for myself and nut it out myself. And I had a couple of really good teachers in school. Like, I'm not saying the teachers were all terrible. Some of them were really great. And one of the teachers that I had, I'm still friends with them today, and that teacher's amazing. And like, he was at the course that I did in, even though he's retired, he was still there learning at the course because he loves learning, and he loves Chinese medicine still. But yeah, I had heaps of teachers that were just like really hard to understand. And then I would read these books and it would be like, oh, this is really arduous to read these things. And I just had to try to puzzle it out myself. And that's kind of how and then I started teaching Chinese medicine when I was quite just a new graduate, and I didn't teach at a university level. I taught at a shiatsu school for like 3 or 4 years. And I used to teach Chinese massage and Chinese diet therapy, and that made me learn a lot because I was like, I want to do a good job for these students. So I used to go and do a lot of research, buy a lot of books, and then I would correlate all this information and say, why are some books are saying quite exactly the opposite to what the other guys are saying? Why is that? And there's not a lot of classical literature on Chinese dietetics. There is some, but there's not a lot. And it's not a scholarly pursuit in Chinese medicine that people do because it's just a part of life. in China. Like people just eat healthy, and they know. How do they know what's healthy? They just know through their culture. Not all Chinese do that, but that's kind of what you're bringing the ideas to life. With the Chinese dietetics. And anyway, so I'm not gonna bang on about that anymore. I have to go because I've got a patient coming soon, and I've got to pack up all this gear out of my. I've got to pack up all the recording gear out of my office in the next 10 minutes. So, thanks everyone. I will. You can find the link to the courses on the videos, okay, somewhere. There might even be a link on this video. I don't know if it's there in the description, but on the new videos in the description, it's there. But I'll be doing this every week on the Monday for the foreseeable future. If it's a public holiday like Easter or something, we won't be doing it. But other than that, happy days. We're doing it. So thanks everyone for your love of Chinese medicine. And if you have a question, you're watching this in retrospect, you think, oh, damn it, I missed the stream. Put your question in the comments and I'll do my best to answer it in the next stream. All right. Thanks everyone. Have a good rest of the day.